Well, I think we're on. Hi, friends. How are you? Chris Westra here with dear wife Angela
Hi.
from Dinosaurama. Thanks for coming in, guys. If you're watching the video live, feel free to type in a comment if you have a question or anything. If you're not seeing this live and you tuned in later, write a question and just keep typing in the comments. We'll get to it too.
Yeah.
Today's subject, try to be quick with you guys. We're talking about kids and quail, getting the kids involved to take care of your little birds. All right, first of all, if you guys are new to quail, I'll try to do this with each of these videos. Just tell them about quail. Grapefruit-sized bird, alternative to chickens if you're looking for a poultry animal for egg purposes. They're self-contained. You raise them in a hutch. There's a lot of education online available, and we have a lot of information too on our Facebook page. Anything you'd like to say very briefly about quails?
They're a great animal to have, whether you have a very tiny piece of property with like no land, or if you have a farm or homestead, small homestead. They're great to do as an individual, or also great to do with children, as with the family, get the whole family involved. A great starter animal, or great for people who are very experienced with animals.
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Why are they great starter animals for the kids? So I'm going to go over a few points. I took notes. I usually don't, but today I take some notes to discuss about kids. So some of the things I want to talk about were age, dealing with the kids when you're involving them with any kind of animal, really, like the different age groups and responsibility and goal setting for the kids. I'm not going to get into developmental psychology or anything like that, just some very basic stuff, and particularly pertaining to the quail. So like I got a toddler. So let's start with the little kids, the little babes, 3, 4 years old, preschool age. So what's the thing to know about like the delicate issues with the quail and the little kids with handling?
So the quail, starting as young, quail-wise, starting as young as day-old chicks and going to just maybe a week and a half old, because they like their size, they grow so fast. So in a week and a half, they're gonna have a lot of feathers, but they still are small. But even the tiny day-old chicks, the concern with children is that the difference with quail and chickens with the chicks is that chicken chicks, they're kind of like bumbly and a little bit more like aloof and not very fast when they're day-old chicks. But quail chicks, they're kind of like when you put them in the brooder, they're like ants. They just like start scattering and going, and they're very curious and they're like moving everywhere, exploring right away. So when you pick them up, they're kind of like popcorn too. And so with kids, you just want to monitor them and make sure that the chicks don't jump out of their hands, because it's just, they're so small. It's just easy because you want to make sure you're not squeezing them. But then if you don't have the right kind of hold, they can jump out of your hands.
Yeah, that's the main issue with the little kids. So instinctively, if something's trying to get, like, they have a pussycat in the house. When the kitty cat's trying to get away, they grab the tailbone. They don't realize they're hurting the critter. They're just doing what comes with the intuition, like, I want this thing. So same with the little birds. The birds, obviously, kids are going to squeeze on them harder. So be with them when they're when you're dealing with the toddlers and little kids handling any kind of animal, really.
Yeah. And going along with that, the chance that a chick might jump out of your child's hands is that they are delicate. So if they do fall, the fall might not necessarily damage them, although it could. The other thing is your child may accidentally step on them, realizing that the chick falls. And then that can be really, hard for a kid. So that's just really a great reason to have your child sitting on the floor when holding the chicks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I wanted to go over with handling the birds. I think the real issue with handling is just with the toddlers and the younger kids wanting to squeeze them. So once they're a little, you educate them and they get a little older, they'll understand. Like the things I wanted to handle with the kids were more like setting schedules with the children, goal setting for the different age groups. And, if you're on a farm, especially, the quail are a microcosm of the larger animals when they get older. If they're going to be dealing with sheep or goats or cows, they learn these responsibilities younger and younger. And I'm sure if you guys grew up with animals, you remember what you did even as little kids. You remember hanging out with the animals. So these,
and even an early sense of introducing business and finances to the kids, with like, because kids, a lot of people like to try the whole let's sell chicken eggs and sell the chicken eggs at the end of the driveway kind of thing, but you could do the same thing with quail, and they're so much smaller, they're kid sized, and just easier for the kids to do, to manage, and be encouraged to even have their own little mini egg program to sell and start experiencing like a business model.
Yeah, there's a lot of different life skills that kids are going to learn. Anytime you do anything new, it doesn't matter what, you're learning new skills. And I mean, if you're doing a food program, you have animals, quail, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, the kids are going to be learning new skills. Now with the quail, one of the other things about handling too, we forgot to mention, quail versus chicken with the little kids. The quails are not aggressive. They're not going to jump up on a kid or...
You're talking about like an adult quail?
Yeah, well, you get traumatized when you're a kid.
Chicken.
Like everybody remembers like the goose
nasty rooster
or the chicken or some
or the
animal that
hen.
attacked them. So you don't want them to get discouraged from animals that are maybe aggressive or territorial, and the quails aren't going to do that.
Yeah, the quail, they're very simple-minded. They're not aggressive to people, to children. They're just there. They're alive. They move around, move away from your hands, kind of thing. But they won't cause harm or intentionally hurt the hands.
One of the huge benefits, I'm going to segue into setting up scheduling for kids. One of the huge benefits of the quail is a tactile feedback. They lay eggs, they put all this work in, and they're going to see the fruits of their labor. They're going to get production out of their labor. So to get the kids involved in doing something regularly, it's like any other chore in the house, washing their clothes, cleaning their room. I'm not going to tell you how to parent, but I'm going to tell you what works, and I have a little bit of a psych background, but what works with anybody really is reinforced scheduling. Encourage, self-starting through a reinforcement of a schedule. When I say reinforcement, you don't have to give gifts or anything, stuff like that. Just reference to a schedule and reinforce with praise, like, hey, you did this and that's really great. And ask questions with the younger kids. With the little kids, they're very receptive to this, and this gives them, emotionally, psychologically, it's a positive feedback loop, and they're going to seek that out again, and it's going to start encouraging the regularity of using a schedule where they feed their animals, make sure their water is clean, whatever you're doing, whatever you have set up for the little dudes, it's very important. Like negative feedback or negative reinforcement is nowhere near as effective. It just, it's like, even as an adult, if you're getting bitched out at work, versus the potential for a bonus, whatever it is, you'd much rather have that positive reinforcement waggled in front of you as opposed to the negative one. But big people, we deal with negative stuff. So anyway, I would encourage scheduling something in an area where the kid can see it. Post something up where your child can recognize their schedule, see it checked off. What I did when my kids were little is I had a laminated board with a weekly schedule on it with a dry erase. You could just squeak it off and erase and change the schedule out each week, and they get a little reward once they were done their month of stuff. And they felt fulfillment, and they did something, and they saw something, and they had physical feedback. So reward, praise, whatever that, encouragement, it's very, very important because it's going to build that reinforcement in the kid to encourage himself to self-start or herself. Now, the delayed gratification and the excitement of eggs. So that's a huge thing. So for getting your child to, so they want to work with these quail and they're all excited about getting eggs, but there's no eggs and they're waiting a week or 2 weeks. So keeping them involved until the birds are laying. How do you do that? Again, it's routine and regular praise and encouragement, recognizing because they love their mommy and daddy or whoever's working with them. And the praise in itself is a reward that's going to encourage them to continue. And then when they see their produce, their eggs, they're like, oh, wow, there's a tactile thing that we'll remember it. And it'll be something you're cognizant of.
The nice thing about the quail, when kids are waiting for eggs to come, if you're starting with chicks or adolescent or juvenile birds, is that the quail, they visually change as they grow. So that's something that's helpful for kids just with attention. Because like, for example, a chicken, their growth is much slower. And it's just very gradual. But like a quail, each week the bird's going to look different. As it's growing to the age where it's ready to start laying eggs, and they can start laying eggs between 6 and 8 weeks. So that's nice for the kids. They'll see them getting bigger. They're going to see their feathers are going to start changing. The feathers on their face are going to they're going to fill out the last part. And then they're going to get nice and plump. And their size is going to get bigger, so that's helpful.
Yeah, and the main benefit, again, before I forget, because there's a lot of talking, these animals are self-contained, so the kids aren't running all over the yard. They're not going to lose anything. So they're self-contained in a centralized area, so it's a place they can, reference and go to easily. They're in their hutch. So the quail, if you don't know, you probably know, but you raise them in a hutch, like a rabbit hutch or a small cage. So they're going to be self-contained. There's no worry of them escaping, except for maybe when they open the door. But I think that's a huge thing for the children, the accessibility and keeping them nearby. All right.
Is there anything else?
No, I just wanted to go over some of that stuff. Didn't have 1 million people show up tonight. I guess it's a beautiful Thursday.
It's okay. But yeah, they are, like you can get fairly technical and detailed with the quail working with your kids because the egg aspect is just one part of having these birds. And the eggs, they come really quickly. And then that first egg is just so exciting for adults and for kids. And then having them...
I was going to remember. I talked to somebody. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I remember I did talk to a kid who was older. He was 18, 17, and I don't remember. He was breeding his own quail anyway. He got interested, and because they bred so fast, he kept them as a breeding experiment to see if we could get them bigger, longer, whatever he was trying, attribute he was breeding into them. So it's not just for little kids, like older kids, FFA,
you can get
groups,
very complicated.
4-H kids.
Adults, you can get complicated with the genes and the colors and all that stuff. But strictly speaking of having them for efficiency and for eggs and meat with kids, that beginning stage, they're going to start laying eggs, and then the kids are going to be excited because the eggs are going to start piling up all of a sudden, and it's going to be like, oh my goodness, look at all these eggs from these tiny birds. They weren't laying eggs a week ago, and now we have a ton of eggs. And then if you want to hatch chicks, that's an exciting thing to do with kids. That's a whole new learning thing to do with them, but it's not a complicated or scary thing to learn or delve into the incubation of quail chicks. The incubation period is less. It's 18 days versus 21 days for chickens, and they just develop very quickly because they're small. Yeah. So everything about them is very fast. It's rewarding for kids. If they want to hatch them out, then they can have the satisfaction of producing their own chicks, and then they grow really fast. They can experience the opportunity of either selecting birds that they grew to keep and continue in their own breeding program, or sell them to the public. Did you have more you want to say? But there's just so many different things you can do with kids to challenge them. You can figure out different things. You can accommodate it for whatever age group your kid is in.
And now I think about it, it'll give them a good use of the internet for a change. They can look up their bird stuff. I think the challenge with anybody is developing regularity, keeping consistent. Anybody, child, adult, they get involved with something and they burn real fast and then they stop. So I think dealing with kids with anything at the house, trying to get them on a schedule, is the strategy that you're going to employ to keep them consistent in doing something. And it's not, they have to be consistent with quail. If you don't, just a consistency in any avenue in life transfers over. It's something it goes through all your transparent layers, and you carry it with you into other aspects of your life. So they're good habits to encourage.
And if you have older kids, and you're already implementing meat into your family and growing your own types of meat. It could be poultry, it could be the larger chickens, it could be sheep or pigs or beef, cows. However it is, the quail, they're an excellent animal choice, especially for anyone really, but for kids who are older and ready to think of of producing food for themselves and their family. So working a meat program into your experience with your older kids. However your child is, if they're already ready and understand processing animals, that's wonderful. But like perhaps the adults are already accustomed to working with larger animals or the whole processing of that. And a kid can feel really like they're contributing to the family. You know, if they have their own little project.
That's part of that whole reward thing.
Yeah,
they'll
and
understand
they can
that they're part of production in the house.
Male quail.
Yeah, kids like responsibility and structure, like anybody else. It's not very difficult to understand. You know, people are very, very similar. Obviously, little kids are developing at different rates, but you know, we all like structure, predictability. Without it, you know, there's anxieties. But with the kids, let me just say this now.
I just wanted to finish the thought on the meat. So the quail, they're also, when you think about the different types of animals you can use to process for meat, the quail it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty quick. It's, they're not like these cuddly little like bunnies. So they're actually a really good animal to use in teaching processing animals, for your family's meat. So it's a good segue to teach them into other
that's
animals.
True. Killing a bunny is pretty sad, but killing a quail is not that big a deal. I was just going to say, any animal program you do with the kids, so you don't get overwhelmed yourself, is have objectives for them. So you're following like, oh, I just want her to do this. Like,
keep it
I
simple.
want my child to do this or this, and I'm not going to pester him to do other things. For a couple reasons. One, it keeps him consistent on the objective you developed, and two, it doesn't introduce that, like I was saying earlier, the inconsistency. When you're having new things come in, we get confused and it gets frustrating and we get demoralized. Yeah. They may not articulate it in those words, but that's pretty common.
Have simple goals, simple tasks for them.
Think about when you were kids. Do you remember, like, if you grew up on your farm, maybe you're a little kid, and your mom said, "You're going to get the eggs. You're going to help me grab the eggs." Simple stuff like that. You felt like you were doing something, and why was that important? It's so important that you remember it 30 or 40 years later. It stays with you. You know, if you did that, it stays with you. Remember these things. They're very, very impactful. Yeah. So creating simple goals and simple objectives for the child will incrementally introduce them to the larger scale production, whatever you're doing at the house. And before you know it, they'll be washing their own clothes. Start with the quail. All right. Any questions, friends? Type them down in the bottom. Otherwise, I think, is there anything left? I want to talk for hours and hours about.
The other things have to do with basic care of any animal. You know, basic needs: cleaning them, feeding them, watering them. So that's
how you stipulate that amongst the children is your decision. And, thanks for coming by. If you're watching this after it was live, feel free to type in a comment or question if you have anything you need to know about, or just send us a message. We'll be happy to get to you. Yeah. Thanks for stopping in. Oh, there's our friend Brad from last week. Howdy, buddy. Hi. This was a short one about families and kids and quails, but hope to hear from anybody. That's that. Anything?
No, I'm good. Yeah. Thanks for stopping in.
Have a happy Thursday. I'll see you guys.
Bye.